Millionaire falls in love at first sight with the bridesmaid who was late to his friend's wedding. Imagine this, a man who has everything, money, power, and influence, walking into a wedding hall, completely uninterested in the chaos around. Him. He's there to fulfill his duty as the best man, nothing more. But then, out of nowhere, she bursts through the doors, late, flustered, clumsy, and absolutely unforgettable. What happens next isn't just chance. It's the kind of moment that changes lives forever. This is the story of how a millionaire CEO fell in love at first sight with the bridesmaid who was late to his friend's wedding. It's a tale of unexpected collisions, undeniable chemistry, and the kind of emotions that make you question everything you thought you knew about love. The scene begins in a luxurious hotel, where the air buzzes with anticipation. Guests dressed in their finest mingle under sparkling chandeliers, sipping champagne and exchanging polite laughter. Among them stands Brian Fisher, a man whose name carries weight in every room he enters. Dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his piercing blue eyes scan the crowd with an air of quiet authority. To most people, Brian is untouchable, a billionaire CEO known for his sharp mind, calculated decisions, and emotional restraint. Love, that's not something he has time for, or so he thinks. Meanwhile, on the other side of the hotel, Emily is running late. And not just fashionably late. She's sprinting down hallways, her heels clicking frantically against the marble floors as she mutters apologies to bewildered guests. Her dress, once pristine, now feels like it's conspiring against her. The bouquet in her hand looks like it might fall apart any second, and her carefully styled hair is starting to rebel. Emily isn't supposed to be the center of attention today. She's just the bridesmaid, here to support her best friend Clara on her big day. But fate seems determined to turn her into the star of the show. Little does she know, her chaotic entrance is about to collide with someone who will change her life in ways she never imagined. And then it happens. Bam! In one fateful moment, Emily crashes straight into Brian Fisher. Literally, her bouquet flies. Her purse hits the floor and she's seconds away from face planting onto the expensive carpet when strong hands grab her waist, pulling her back from disaster. As she looks up, dazed and embarrassed, she locks eyes with the man she just bowled over. Brian's cologne fills the air. His deep voice rumbles as he steadies her. And for a split second, time seems to stop. Neither of them says much in that moment, but the connection is immediate and electric. Brian doesn't miss a beat. With a smirk that could melt ice, he quips about her suicide mission, teasing her clumsiness while masking the intrigue bubbling beneath his composed exterior. Emily, flustered and defensive, fires back with sarcasm, trying to play it cool despite the storm brewing inside her. Their banter is quick, sharp, and laced with tension. Sparks fly even before they exchange names. Yet, as Emily hurries off to join the bridal party, leaving Brian standing there watching her go, neither realizes that this collision was only the beginning. As the ceremony unfolds, Emily finds herself stealing glances at Brian, seated among the groomsmen. His presence dominates the room, his gaze intense and unreadable. Who is this man? When she finally learns his identity, that he's none other than Brian Fisher, one of the richest and most powerful men in the country, her stomach twists with equal parts awe and dread. How did she manage to embarrass herself in front of someone like him? Worse yet, why can't she stop thinking about him? For Brian, it's no different. Despite his reputation for being cold and calculating, there's something about Emily that captivates him. Maybe it's her authenticity, the way she wears her heart on her sleeve, Or maybe it's the fact that she didn't simper or fawn over him like everyone else tends to do. Whatever it is, Brian can't shake the feeling that meeting her wasn't an accident. Something about her feels important. But just as their paths seem destined to cross again, another mishap throws them together in the most awkward way possible. At the reception, Emily accidentally spills red wine all over Brian's impeccable suit. Mortified, she stammers out apologies, expecting anger or irritation. Instead, Brian surprises her by staying calm, even amused. "Don't worry," he says, with a wry smile. "It's just wine." Then, almost casually, he invites her to join him at the bar. Emily hesitates, torn between caution and curiosity. After all, what harm could one drink do? What starts as a casual conversation quickly turns into something deeper. Over whiskey shots and playful challenges, they discover surprising things about each other. Emily learns that beneath Brian's polished exterior lies a man who's more complex and vulnerable than he lets on. Meanwhile, Brian finds himself drawn to Emily's wit, passion, and unapologetic honesty. By the end of the night, they're dancing together under golden lights, their bodies moving in sync, as if guided by some invisible force. For the first time, Brian feels something he hasn't felt in years. Hope. And Emily, she's starting to wonder if maybe, just maybe, fairy tales aren't so far-fetched after all. But reality has a way of crashing back in. The next morning, Emily walks into work, determined to put last night behind her. Life goes on, right? Except it doesn't. Not when Brian Fisher shows up in the conference room as the new lead investor for her company's biggest project. Suddenly, the line between personal and professional blurs, and the tension between them becomes impossible to ignore. Every glance, every word exchanged, feels charged with unspoken meaning. They're playing a dangerous game, walking a tightrope between attraction and professionalism. One misstep could cost them everything. As the days turn into weeks, Emily and Brian find themselves pulled closer together. Even as they try to resist, their worlds couldn't be more different. He's used to luxury and control, while she thrives on creativity and independence. Yet somehow they fit. But fitting isn't always enough. Doubts creep in, fears surface, and the question looms: can two people from such vastly different lives truly find happiness together? Just when it seems like they might have a shot, a confrontation leaves Emily questioning whether Brian is ready to give up his solitary existence for love. Torn between her heart and her head, she makes a decision that will change the course of both their lives. And that's where we leave things, for now. Will Emily run, or will she take a leap of faith? Can Brian overcome his fear of vulnerability and let himself fall fully in love? You'll have to stick around to find out, because sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones that start with a stumble or a crash. Stay tuned for the next chapter in this unforgettable journey of hearts colliding, destinies intertwining, and the magic of falling in love when you least expect it. As the days turned into weeks, Emily and Brian found themselves caught in a whirlwind neither of them had anticipated. At first, their interactions were strictly professional, Brian reviewing project updates, Emily presenting design concepts. But it didn't take long for the tension to spill over. The late-night meetings became more frequent, the conversations less about work and more about everything else. Brian would ask questions that seemed casual at first, but always carried an undercurrent of curiosity. Why architecture? Or what drives you? And Emily, who usually kept her guard up around people like him, found herself opening up in ways she never expected. But it wasn't just Brian who was changing. Emily noticed small things about him too. The way he tapped his pen when deep in thought, the rare moments when his stoic mask slipped, revealing glimpses of vulnerability. She started to see past the billionaire CEO facade and realized there was a man underneath who was as guarded as she was. Yet, every time they got closer, reality would crash back in. They weren't just two people falling for each other. They were a bridesmaid and the groom's best man, co-workers tied together by one of the biggest projects of her career. Every stolen glance felt like a risk, every shared laugh a betrayal of professionalism. The real conflict began when rumors started swirling around Horizon Construction. Whispers spread among employees about the special attention Brian Fisher was giving Emily Carter. Some dismissed it as harmless admiration, while others speculated something deeper. Oliver Harris, the firm's director, called Emily into his office one afternoon. His tone was calm, but firm. "I trust you, Emily," he said, leaning back in his chair. "But Brian Fisher isn't just any investor. He's powerful, influential. And if anything goes wrong with this project, heads will roll." Emily nodded, swallowing hard. She knew what he meant. Her career, her reputation, everything she'd worked so hard for could crumble if things went south. Meanwhile, Brian wrestled with his own demons. For years, he had prided himself on being untouchable, someone who made decisions based on logics rather than emotion. But now, all he could think about was Emily. Her laugh haunted him during boardroom meetings. Her smile lingered in his mind long after their encounters ended. It terrified him because he wasn't used to feeling out of control. One evening, sitting alone in his penthouse with a glass of whiskey, he stared out at the city lights and wondered how he had let this happen. Was it possible to love someone without losing himself completely? As the Richmond Tower project progressed, tensions reached a boiling point. During a critical presentation, Brian challenged one of Emily's key proposals in front of the entire team. His critique was sharp, almost brutal, leaving her stunned and humiliated. Later, in private, she confronted him. "Was that really necessary?" she demanded, her voice trembling with anger. Brian leaned against the conference table, his expression unreadable. "It's my job to ensure this project succeeds," he replied coolly. "Not to coddle anyone." Emily clenched her fists, fighting back tears. "You don't get to do this," she shot back. "You don't get to act like nothing is happening between us and then tear me apart in public." For the first time, Brian looked shaken. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "And what exactly is happening between us, Emily? Because I sure as hell don't know anymore." The honesty in his words caught her off guard. She wanted to scream, to push him away, but instead she whispered, "Neither do I." That night, they avoided each other entirely, both retreating to their corners to process what had happened. Things only grew more complicated when Clara, the bride from the wedding, pulled Emily aside after learning about the growing scandal. "Emily, you need to be careful," Clara warned, her voice tinged with concern. "Brian Fisher isn't just some guy. People are watching. If word gets out..." She trailed off, letting the implications hang in the air. Emily nodded numbly, already aware of the stakes. But what Clara said next hit her like a punch to the gut. "Do you even know why he transferred his share in the Richmond Tower?" Emily froze. "What do you mean?" Clara hesitated before speaking. Again. "Rumors say he did it because of you, to protect you, or maybe to clear the way for whatever this is." That revelation sent Emily spiraling. She replayed every interaction with Brian, searching for clues she might have missed. Had he sacrificed millions just to remove the obstacle of their working relationship? If so, what did that mean for them? Was this love, or was it obsession? The uncertainty gnawed at her, making it impossible to focus on anything else. When Brian texted her later that night, "We need to talk," she knew she couldn't avoid him forever. They met at the same quiet cafe, where Emily had once tried to sort through her thoughts. This time, though, the atmosphere was heavier, charged, with unspoken emotions. Brian arrived first, sitting stiffly in his chair, his hands wrapped tightly around a cup of coffee. When Emily walked in, he stood up, his eyes locking onto hers. There was no smirk, no teasing glint, just raw intensity. "Emily," he began, his voice rough with emotion. "I can't keep pretending this isn't happening." She sat down across from him, her heart pounding. "Then stop," she whispered. "Tell me what you want, Brian." What followed was a confession, unlike anything Emily had ever heard. Brian admitted he had fallen for her, harder and faster than he thought possible. He confessed that transferring his stake in the project hadn't been a calculated move, but a desperate attempt to create space for them. "I've spent my whole life building walls," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "But you climbed right over them, and I don't know how to handle it." Emily listened silently, tears streaming down her face. Part of her wanted to believe him, to throw caution to the wind and embrace what they had, but another part, the rational, cautious part, reminded her of the risks. Their conversation ended ambiguously, neither of them willing to make the final leap. As Emily walked home that night, she realized the choice ahead of her wasn't just about love. It was about trust, sacrifice, and whether she was ready to let go of the life she had built for the chance at something greater. Meanwhile, Brian returned to his penthouse, staring blankly at the skyline. He had laid his cards on the table, exposed his vulnerabilities, and now all he could do was wait. The climax approached quickly. A major deadline loomed for the Richmond Tower project, and the pressure mounted exponentially. Emily threw herself into her work, hoping productivity would drown out her racing thoughts. But fate had other plans. During a crucial site visit, she stumbled upon documents detailing discrepancies in the budget, a discovery that implicated Brian's former investment firm. Suddenly, she was faced with an impossible decision: expose the truth and risk destroying not only the project, but also Brian's legacy, or stay silent and compromise her integrity. When she confronted Brian about the findings, the air crackled with tension. Standing in the half-finished lobby of the Richmond Tower, surrounded by echoes of construction noise, they argued fiercely. "How could you not tell me about this?" Emily shouted, clutching the incriminating papers. Brian's jaw tightened. "Because I trusted you to handle it," he snapped. "This is your domain, Emily, not mine." His words stung, but beneath the anger lay a plea for understanding, for forgiveness, for faith in each other. In that moment, standing amidst steel beams and concrete foundations, Emily realized the true test of their relationship wasn't about overcoming external obstacles. It was about whether they could stand together when the world seemed determined to pull them apart. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the unfinished tower, she made her choice, one that would change both their lives forever. As Emily and Brian stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, amidst the applause of their friends and family, neither could believe how far they had come. What started as a chaotic collision at a wedding had transformed into a love story neither of them ever imagined possible. But life, as they both knew too well, wasn't always kind enough to let happy moments linger without challenge. The weeks following their wedding were filled with bliss. Lazy mornings spent sipping coffee together, late-night conversations about everything and nothing, and quiet weekends exploring the city hand in hand. Yet beneath the surface, Questions lingered. Could Brian truly leave his old habits behind? Was Emily ready to face the judgment that came with being married to one of the most powerful men in the world? And what about the Richmond Tower project? The very thing that had brought them closer, but also tested their boundaries. One evening, while reviewing final blueprints for the tower, Emily noticed something alarming. Hidden within the financial reports was evidence of embezzlement. Subtle, yet undeniable. The numbers didn't add up, and when she dug deeper, she discovered it traced back to Brian's former investment firm, the same company he'd walked away from for her. Her stomach churned as she realized the implications. If this came out, it wouldn't just jeopardize the project. It could destroy Brian's reputation entirely. She waited until they were alone that night before confronting him. Sitting across from him at the kitchen table, she slid the documents toward him. "Brian," she began, her voice trembling, "you need to see this." He scanned the pages, his expression unreadable at first, but then his jaw tightened. For once, his calm facade cracked. "How long have you known?" he asked, his tone clipped. "I found it today," she replied softly. "What are we going to do?" For the first time since she'd met him, Brian looked unsure. "We can't ignore this," he said finally. "But exposing it means dragging us, and everyone involved, into a mess I might not be able to fix." Emily reached across the table, taking his hand. "Then we'll fix it together." The next few days were a whirlwind. They worked tirelessly, gathering evidence and consulting legal advisors. It was risky, especially since the scandal implicated some of the wealthiest and most influential figures in the industry. But Emily refused to let fear dictate their choices. She reminded Brian why he'd stepped away from his old life, to build something real, something meaningful, with her. Together, they decided to go public. When the news broke, it sent shockwaves through the business world. Headlines screamed betrayal and corruption, and Brian's name was dragged through the mud alongside those accused. But unlike the others, Brian took full responsibility for failing to catch the discrepancies earlier. In a press conference, he stood beside Emily, holding her hand tightly. "I made mistakes," he admitted, his voice steady despite the storm around them. "But I'm here today because of the woman who taught me that running isn't the answer. We're facing this head-on, together." Emily watched as the crowd absorbed his words, her heart swelling with pride. This wasn't the cold, calculating CEO she'd first met. It was a man willing to fight for what mattered. The fallout was brutal, but slowly, things began to shift. Public opinion turned in their favor as people saw the truth. Brian Fisher wasn't perfect, but he was human, and he was trying. Months later, the dust settled. The Richmond Tower opened its doors, becoming a symbol of resilience and integrity. Emily and Brian attended the grand opening side by side, their bond stronger than ever. As they stood on the rooftop terrace, overlooking the city skyline, Brian turned to her. "Do you remember the first time we talked here?" he asked, gesturing to the view. Emily smiled. "How could I forget? You annoyed me half the time." He chuckled, pulling her close. "And now," she leaned into him, resting her head against his chest. "Now I can't imagine my life without you." His arms tightened around her, and for a moment, they simply stood there, basking in the quiet joy of having fought for something worth keeping. In the end, their story became more than just a tale of romance. It was a reminder that love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing to stand by someone, even when the odds are stacked against you. Brian learned to embrace vulnerability, while Emily discovered strength she never knew she had. Together, they proved that no obstacle is insurmountable when two hearts beat as one. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues over the city, Emily whispered, "Thank you." Brian raised an eyebrow. "For what?" She grinned. "For being stubborn enough to chase me, even when I tried to run." He kissed her forehead, murmuring, "Always." And so, their journey continued, not without challenges, but with a foundation built on trust, courage, and an unshakable connection. For Emily and Brian, the future wasn't just bright, it was theirs to shape, one step at a time.